Hey, First Things First listeners, before we start the show, I wanted to tell you about our brand new Fox Sports app and website, foxsports.com, reimagined for the modern sports fan. Go ahead, download the new app right now. You don't even have to pause this episode. Every day on the new app and website, you'll see the top stories in sports, plus a rich world of written content, videos, social media, and analytics to give you a 360-degree view of the most important stories of the day. Streaming live TV has never been so easy or elegant. Every Fox Sports game, including all pregame and postgame shows, as well as the televised version of this show, just a click away. For the extra invested fan, we also go deep with real-time wagering lines, trending prop bets, win probability, and key player projections. So download the new Fox Sports app or visit www.foxsports.com. Now let's start the show. Good morning, everyone, and welcome to First Things First on this Christmas Eve. I'm Jenna Wolfe alongside Nick Wright, Brandon Marshall, Kevin Wilds, and we have a wonderful show for you today. We have, let's see, apologies in the NFL. We have non-apologies in the NBA, and we have our Christmas wish list. Yes, go ahead.
Jenna, may I ask a question? Kevin Wilds said about a month ago on this show he has a velvet or satin jacket that only works on Christmas Eve. Today's Christmas Eve and you're not busting it out? What are you doing? Like, come on. During the commercial break, do a wardrobe change.
Good memory.
Like, I was waiting for it, Wilds. The elves are waiting for it. Everyone's waiting for it.
It's not,
and
it's
and
not
you're not
too
wearing
late.
it. Yeah,
I'm going to get it.
I'm just saying, Jenna. That's all. No
he
problem,
said Christmas Eve. When we all end up at Wild's house tonight, I'm sure we'll end up seeing it. All right, let's get to the NBA. We got a great one to start off the show. Giannis and the Bucks taking on Jason Tatum and the Celtics. Here we go. Boston down 1 in the final seconds. Tatum from deep over who? Over Giannis. For Tatum, his 30th point of the night. It puts Boston up 2 with 0.4 seconds to go. Bucks with a chance for overtime. Watch it. A perfect play drawn up only for Giannis. Fouled on the inbound pass. So Giannis will go to the line he needs to. First one, boom, makes it. Second one, should be a lock. Not a lock. Misses the second. Giannis, you can't miss it. Good observation, Jenna. Celtics take an exciting season opener. Nick, my Celtics are undefeated. How about that for Boston? But we got to start by talking about this ending. What do you think, and we will get to Danny Ainge. Nick, bigger deal, Tatum's game winner over Giannis or Giannis coming up short at the line at the end there?
All right, I'm going to start with the free throw, and then I have a question to ask Kevin Wilds. Listen, announcers don't like to hear this. Media members don't like to hear this. But here's a dirty truth about the NBA. Missed free throws don't actually really matter. Find me the last championship swung by a missed free throw. There's one in the last decade. Kawhi Leonard missed one before the Ray Allen 3. People love banging on, oh my God, how do you not make your free throws? Because it's the one thing commentators can say, well, I could do it. Well, no, actually, in the moment you couldn't. You'd miss the basket entirely. So Shaquille O'Neal, historically bad free throw shooter. You know how many playoff games he lost because of free throw shooting? None that mattered ever, really.
Oh, my God.
I'm not worried about that.
What about Karl Malone's? What about Karl Malone's free throws?
Now we're going 25 years ago. Karl Malone had other issues. So if we want to go back a quarter century, that's fine. But Kevin Wilds, on the Tatum thing, I have a question for you. Do you want the real take, or do you want the fake take that everyone is going to give today? Which one do you want? You tell me.
Well, I like the realness. I like the realness. The great album title, and it's what I'm looking for you. It's what all of America is looking for you. I would like the real take, please. Okay.
Because the fake take would have been, this is the arrival of a superstar. These are the moments.
Oh, yeah.
This is how Jason Tatum takes the next leap, and you're going to hear that all throughout the day. Here's the real take. That was an egregious miss that was missed so badly it went in. That's the answer. So, like, what's the bigger deal? Well, Giannis missed a free throw barely. Tatum missed his shot by 4 feet so badly that it banked in.
I totally agree.
Because here's what I know. He was not trying to bank this in. He missed it not by this much, but by this much.
I know.
And so, listen, the win counts and the Celtics feel good, but that's not a good shot. And it's not that it's a bad shot because it was contested or anything. It's a bad shot, Wilds, because he missed it by 3.5 feet. So that's so I say neither's a big deal. Giannis's miss or Tatum's even worse miss that was missed so bad it went in. That's the honest take.
I totally agree. I think the basketball gods are very upset this morning. Basketball has a way of balancing itself out. You want to bank in a three? There's an alert. God gets an alert. The basketball gods, there's several. Boop, boop, boop. Oh, banked in 3, game winner. Oh, no. Accept, bingo, phantom call, lob. There we go. The basketball world is righted. But Giannis can't miss that. And then the basketball gods are like, dude, we gave you a shot here.
Of course he can.
And Brandon, here's the other weird thing about Giannis that I agree with Nick. It is the rare clutch, not clutch fourth quarter. He had 18 points. He went 7 for 10. He went 1 for 2 for the line. Problem is, the one that you missed cost you the game. So I thought the basketball gods were very upset with Giannis. And I'll give you this question, Brandon. Little anecdote. And Nick, you mentioned this the other day because some announcer, they pumped in air ball. The Celtics played in stadium noise while Giannis is on the line. And I was like,
yeah, that's right.
I'm like, I guess that's allowed. But it opens up a big Pandora's box of what you can play unnaturally in the sound to you can start putting on Nick Wright's takes about Tatum over the. I don't know why the Celtics would necessarily do that. Maybe that would be a Bucks thing. But overall, I thought that was weird too. And Nick, I agree with your earlier take where it's like I bet that the NBA is like, you know what, just cheering or maybe a little bit of booing, but you can't play with the audio that much in an empty arena.
Yeah, I don't know, guys. I was torn on this one. And the reason why is because what I saw last night was 2 players trying to ascend to the next tier on your Nick Wright tiers. And that's what I saw. On one side, you saw Tatum, who has this big question mark around him. What's the question mark? Can he become a superstar? Can he do what he actually did last night? And there's no evidence that he didn't call glass. So do we or do we not know if he called glass? Because if he called glass, then look, great shot. Well, until we get proof, I'm going with that he called it. But sometimes those moments are the thing that you need to actually take you to the next level. Sometimes you close your eyes and you make that one-hand catch and it's like, oh man, I didn't mean to do that, but it gave me the confidence to go make that play again. So I think on one hand, you have Tatum trying to show us to go to superstar status. And then on the other hand, I want to say that, Giannis, it was more important. The more important thing here was Giannis because Giannis is a 2-time MVP. Giannis is supposed to be the face of the NBA, potentially the best player in the NBA. And we're looking for him to ascend. And where are those areas that he needs improvement? Well, free throws. Like if this was just a single game, an isolated issue, then it wouldn't be an issue. But he shoots 63% from the line. That is a problem. We also see him like, will he shoot threes? Well, he shot 8 threes last night, so he showed that he's trying to at least attempt to get better there, and then also put his back against the basket and try to create offense differently than just putting down his shoulder and bulldozing his way to the rim. So look, I think it's a bigger deal that Giannis missed this because he's a 63% shooter from the line, Nick, and it does matter. Like you keep talking about free throws don't matter, but sometimes these little moments are the difference between winning and losing.
Okay, so I agree with nearly everything Brandon said except for the free throw thing. So on Giannis, I thought you saw him trying to score in different ways than he scored throughout last year's season, with a more post-up game, more back-to-the-basket stuff, and as Wilds pointed out, Giannis's fourth quarter was brilliant. They were down 17 points going into the fourth quarter, and then it's a game that comes down to the final shots because of how brilliantly he played. I also think Brandon's point that even though it was a wildly lucky shot that he missed by 3 feet, that can actually be something Tatum builds upon because he hit a game winner on national television in Giannis's face start the season. So I think that's a really smart point. The free throw thing, I'm going to be a man alone on this hill, but it's fine. All I have is just years and years of evidence. I'm old enough to remember in the bubble, Damian Lillard missing a free throw, and it cost him so much he was the player of the bubble, and his team made the postseason, and they took the first game off the Lakers. Shaquille O'Neal's free throws were talked about for 20 years. It never hurt him. It never hurt him. Yeah, go ahead.
Yes, it does,
Go
Nick.
ahead, Brandon.
Listen, if he makes the shot, they go into overtime, right? And then what happens? They could potentially win the game. Let's say they win the game. So it did cost their team potentially to.
Absolutely.
It did cost them.
Free throws can cost you an individual game, of course. I just don't think it's indicative of anything. I don't think it's indicative, Jenna, of like the moment was too big or it's going to be a big problem. He just missed a free throw.
Yeah, that's
Guys miss
true.
them. Even the best free throw shooters miss them. They miss them.
Can I bottom line it for America? The Celtics have yet to lose a basketball game. That is all you need to know when you walk away from last night's game against the Bucks. All right, we got to take a turn, talk some NFL now. My Christmas advice to you, download the Fox Super 6 app. Get your picks in for free before kickoff on Sunday for your chance to win $100,000 of Terry Bradshaw's well-earned money. Last Sunday, there were 5 winners of the big jackpot. Take a look at this.
Congratulations, Ashley.
Thank you.
And when I say I don't have any money, it's because of people like you who have no idea what they're doing. Do you have any rhyme to reason of the teams that you picked? And
I don't.
Okay, that's good.
If it's the Packers, I just have to pick them even if they're not supposed to win. My fiance's better at picking. I just scroll and hit submit. Like, that's just...
What's up, First Thing First listeners? It's your boy Shay Sharp, co-host of FS1's Undisputed. I wanted to tell you about my new podcast, Club Shay Shay, where we always do something before two something. Each week, I sit down with a guest for a drink and conversation, and as host and proprietor of Club Shay Shay, I've welcomed in esteemed guests such as Snoop Dogg, Floyd Money Mayweather, LeVar Ball, Isaiah Thomas, just to mention a few. Whether I'm talking to an athlete, a musician, an actor, or a lifelong friend, Club Shay Shay is a place where people share inspiring and motivational stories about their journeys to prominence. The new episode drops every Monday on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts. Subscribe to Club Shay Shay now and make sure you never miss a new episode. Now, back to First Things First.
We get back into the Christmas spirit. It was only 3 weeks ago this was the team to beat in the NFL. Pretty unstoppable, some people said. Visions of perfection danced in their head. But 3 weeks later, they'd lose 3 in a row. I'll stop my fun rhyming because we're not that kind of show. A lot of finger pointing going around these days, most of it at quarterback plays. They did it again. Ben was asked about it. Take a listen to this.
I don't blame them. When you play like poo, you should get talked about like that. And so, I need to play better. So if I'm not giving them a reason to talk good, then I'm giving them a reason to talk bad. So that's all on me. I need to play better.
Big Ben said poo. Hey, Brandon, what will we be saying Monday if the Steelers come out and they lose this game to the 10-4 Colts this weekend?
Yeah, I think there's going to be a few storylines. The Steelers have real problems. Defensively, they're playing good. They're not playing great anymore, but they're still a really good defense. They're just banged up as the Walking Dead. Offensively, you got the big three, the big offensive linemen up front. They're starting to struggle, so they're not really getting pushed in the run game. Wide receivers dropping balls. But I think the biggest storyline is going to really be about Big Ben and possibly him being the weakest link on the Pittsburgh Steelers. And maybe it's time for the Pittsburgh Steelers to move past Big Ben. I think that's going to be the storyline come Monday, Tuesday, Jenna, if these guys don't get back on track and back on track fast.
All right. So I'm surprised here because Big Ben still has the leadership qualities that I think I think the Steelers need. Although I don't, there are some questions here. I saw a tweet today that Big Ben called a players-only meeting, but he specifically said, "I don't want to talk about the losing streak." And I was like, he's like, what? Roethlisberger said he called a players-only meeting, but it had nothing to do with the 3-game losing streak. So Nick, is it a secret Santa? I'm not sure what's going on here. Are we talking about the dance moves on the logo? I don't know what's happening, but to me, I don't know if I'm ready to say Big Ben is washed. It feels like his arm is a little bit spent. That's why, short of retirement, which I think is a bridge too far, I still think Tom would be like, hey, why don't we take a half off? Why don't we take a game off and get you in the playoffs 100%?
Well, it's very interesting you say take a game off, because while on this show, people think I'm the anti-Steelers guy. Brandon picks them to go to the Super Bowl. I say Big Ben, is going to be old and washed by the end of the year. I'm zigging when people expect to zag, because here's the problem with the analysis of the Steelers right now. It's gone too far. Were they ever a great team? No. Did they ever have any chance of going undefeated? Of course not. But are they going to lose 5 straight games to end the year? No. Should they be underdogs at home to Phillip Rivers? No. They're going to win this weekend. And when they win this weekend, it'll lock up the division. And that, Wilds, will give Mike Tomlin a very interesting opportunity. He can give them the bye they squandered over the last month. Because if they don't care about seeding, Brandon, whether they're 2, 3, or 4, then win this weekend, lock up the division, you get a home playoff game no matter what, rest everybody in Week 17. Give Big Ben Week 17 off. You thought you were going to have a bye in the first round of the playoffs. That's now gone. So you can give your team the next best thing, a bye in Week 17. And so I think they're going to beat the Colts. I think the Colts are a beatable playoff team. I think that they have some obvious flaws, and the Steelers are not as bad as they looked on Monday night against the Bengals. So I think they win on Sunday, and then Mike Tomlin makes the decision, do we just rest Big Ben, rest our veterans against the Browns in Week 17 so we can go into the playoffs as healthy as possible, and where our last game that we actually played was a victory over the Colts?
Ooh, Nick, I don't know, man. They may be going into the postseason on a 5-game losing streak. Let's just start.
Wow.
The Cleveland Browns is your team. You love the Cleveland Browns. I think, do you have the Cleveland Browns as what, a shadow contender? So, come on. Right now, we can right now, we can have the argument, and it's I don't even know if it's an argument, but we could be talking about the Cleveland Browns being better than the Pittsburgh Steelers at this point in the season. But let's get there later. The Indianapolis Colts, 2 guys present some major problems for the Pittsburgh Steelers. DeForest Buckner, probably one of the biggest Pro Bowl snubs in, the last 20 years. This dude is phenomenal. He can wreck this game by himself. That defense is playing really well. That defense presents problems because they can play press man, they can play zone, and they'll take away what the Pittsburgh Steelers do. And that's trying to get the ball out quick and all the little quick games and the little screens. They can do that. Big Ben, maybe they do some self-scout and they start taking some shots down the field. Maybe they start doing a little bit more play action, which they haven't done since Big Ben really's been there. So it may be a Big Ben thing why they don't even utilize the play action. But that's going to be a real problem for the Pittsburgh Steelers offense, who's struggling. And then when you go to the Indianapolis side, the offensive side, Phillip Rivers, he's probably the most undervalued quarterback in the last 30 years. I'm saying it right now. He's playing as a top 5 quarterback, and nobody's talking about this guy. Look,
because
the Pittsburgh Steelers, for the first time in a long time, is playing man-to-man coverage, and Phillip Rivers, as we know, will try you if you give him opportunities. And look, it could go the other way, but he hasn't shown that in the last 5 or 6 weeks. He's been taking care of the ball, and it could get real dangerous for the Pittsburgh Steelers because of Phillip Rivers, Nick.
I don't want to talk here. I can't deal with anything Brandon just said about Phillip Rivers. Jenna, move on to Juju. I can't deal with it. I can't deal with it.
So let's talk about Juju, which is the other Steelers storyline. Juju and his logo dancing. Much like Wild's green tie, it had officially become a distraction. On Tuesday, Mike Tomlin said he would talk to his wideout about it. That talk apparently happened because yesterday Juju said he would stop the shenanigans, quote, for the betterment of myself and my teammates. That was a delay reaction by you, Wilds. Brandon, you buying
No,
that
it's
we've
about
seen the last of this?
Tomlin talking about my tie.
Yeah, 100%. As far as the dancing on the team logos before the game, yeah, this is done. We will never see this again. Right now, see, this is the tough part about being a professional athlete. When it's working, it's great, right? But when it isn't, it's all bad because you have millions of people, okay, listening to us talking heads talk about how bad you have been playing and how terrible this is, right? Because you are a wide receiver that for the past 2 years haven't averaged more than 50 yards a game. That is a problem. So now that gets into your head. So this is over forever. Now, if you score a touchdown, if you go for over 100 yards, do your dance. I don't care what you do. But right now, Mike Tomlin stepped in. It's over, Nick.
All right, so I'm happy that Juju, I think he's doing the right thing. I think he's doing the right thing by his teammates. But I have to do something I hate to do, and I almost never do. I have to issue an apology. And after the show yesterday, my wife came downstairs and said, Nick, that young man is doing those dances perfectly. And you said he's a bad dancer.
Yes.
You need to apologize. She said those are the exact TikTok dances he's supposed to be doing. You don't know what you're talking about, and you were so mean to that young man yesterday. So, Juju, I impugned your dancing ability yesterday. I have been informed. I'm just old and busted. I didn't know that these are the TikTok dances, so my apologies on that very specific point, sincerely, and good job, Juju, in deciding not to do this anymore.
You
My
lost
bad.
to the Cincinnati Bengals. They lost to the Cincinnati Bengals.
I feel like we should savor the moment if we're going to get an apology from Nick Wright. The Steelers may have lost a distraction. The Cardinals have certainly gained one. We'll tell you what that is coming up. First things first.
Hey, First Things First listeners, it's Charlotte Wilder here to tell you about my new podcast with Mark Titus called the People's Sports Podcast. It comes out every Thursday, and Mark and I take one of the big stories of the week, and then we go off on tangents you never saw coming. This might mean that we start talking about the Dodgers winning the World Series and end up wondering if Knicks fans deserve happiness. Or begin with LeBron's greatness and end up drafting our ultimate beer league softball team made up of old athletes. Whatever it is, the only rule of the show is that it has to be fun and funny, because these days we could all use as many laughs as we can get. So check it out wherever you get your podcasts and come down weird sports rabbit holes with us. We can't wait to have you. Now, back to First Things First.
Christmas Day, it's an NFL special. The Vikings, Saints. Coverage begins at 3:30 Eastern on Fox. Also available on NFL Network and streaming on Prime Video. All right, let's stick with the NFL for a little drawing of blank. Aaron Rodgers threw for less than 150 yards in the win over the Panthers last week. He's looking to bounce back right into that MVP race this week. But Brandon, the player you were most excited to watch in Week 16 is blank.
Ooh, this is going to be a good one. Josh Allen versus the New England Patriots on Monday Night Football. The reason why I'm excited to watch this kid is because his upside. This dude continues to get better week in and week out. Go back to his college days at Wyoming. This dude was completing 58% of his passes. Why? Because he didn't have anybody to throw to. And why didn't he look amazing in college as far as accuracy? Because he didn't have the coaches. He had Stephon Diggs. He had Brian Daboll now. This kid is lights out. Last week, what did he do? 70% completion percentage, 359 yards through the air, 2 touchdowns through the air, 2 touchdowns running the ball. I want to see how good this kid can be and how far he can take this team. That's why I like Josh Allen.
Brandon's right, and lights out is exactly how I would put it. Sometimes they're on, sometimes they're off. It's like flickering lights, flickering lights out, almost like a disco situation. All right, player I'm most excited to watch, and one that actually, unlike Josh Allen, could have a real impact on who wins or plays in the Super Bowl, Drew Brees. Everybody, myself included, gave Brees a pass for last week because he was going up against the wildly underrated top 10 scoring defense of the Kansas City Chiefs, and because he was coming off 11 cracked ribs, a punctured lung, and all of the injuries. But the playoffs start quite soon, and the Saints are at this point, not likely to have a bye. So I want to see how healthy Drew Brees looks. Because if Drew Brees does not look like the Drew Brees we're used to seeing pre-rib injury, the Saints are in massive trouble. So I'm excited to watch Drew Brees and to watch Drew Brees without Michael Thomas, as he's going to be until the playoffs do begin.
Okay, I'm going with Derrick Henry, specifically Derrick Henry's right arm. Here's Josh Norman getting manhandled, and then last week Myers got it. Packers, according to our researcher Dusty, and this is most likely to be stiff-armed off the planet. I don't think that's an official stat. I think he made it up based on the Packers' least efficient tacklers that are likely to play the most. Will Redmond, Chandon Sullivan. Don't let Derrick Henry put you on that Winter Jam screen. Be careful, my friends. Be careful.
All right, on to the Rams. Boy, this team's doing a little soul-searching this week after losing to the everything Jets. They're looking to bounce back this weekend in Seattle. But, Brandon, the team that should be on upset alert in Week 16 is blank.
Well, you just talked about one of them. You just talked about them. The Jets, baby. Jets. Jets.
Now
If you've never been to a Jets game and saw firemen and rile up the crowd, you need to go. It's one of the greatest sporting experiences ever. Look, this team just beat the Rams. They had a 17 and a half point. They were 17 and a half point favorites. They should have beat the Raiders. They should be 2-3 in the last 3 weeks. The Jets is the team. They are embracing being the spoilers. They already spoiled all of the New York fan base for Trevor Lawrence. They want to play spoiler alert for the Cleveland Browns. The Jets, I'm telling you, this is going to be the game to watch. This is going to be exciting. They are ready to go.
On the screen. Brandon, so I have a question for you. Because that then means if Baker plays well, you won't come on Monday and say, but it was against the Jets, right? Because the Jets are tough now. They should have won 2 out of 3.
Listen,
they're playing well. Like I'm just trying to
great because Wiles, don't entertain that.
No. I'm just asking
I like what you did there.
He played great against the Giants, and you weren't on the show, but you tweeted Baker played well against the Giants, like the Giants don't have a top 10 defense. So I'm just curious if he plays well against the Jets, he's getting credit for it, right? Tell me.
Give me 24 hours to find out on this one. I'll get back to you on that one, okay?
Yeah, okay, Christmas morning. I'll be waiting for you. Team that should be on upset alert is the Chicago Bears. This is multi-layered, so stay with me. They're playing the Jags. So why should they be on upset alert? First of all, a team quarterbacked by Mitch Trubisky should never, under any circumstances, be 7.5 point favorites on the road. That is utterly insane. But here's the other reason why they should be on upset alert. We said last week was the worst moment in Jets franchise history. You know what would be worse? Losing Trevor Lawrence, getting him back because the Jags win, and then having Belichick take him from you by tanking Week 17 and giving you your second win. And if I know anything about Jets fandom and their lives, that's how this has to go. The worst moment ever, a glimmer of hope, only to have Bill Belichick squash you. So, I think the Jags win. I think Jets fans have 120 hours of happiness before Belichick ruins it for them right after New Year's, Wilds. Multifaceted.
Look, if you want to go on to Fox Bet, and if there's a bet, what's more likely? Belichick tanks to the Jets or does a juju dance, TikTok dance before the game? Bet on the dance. That is not happening. Okay, here's what it is. Patriots Bills. Here's Josh Allen. Thanks for this, Pepper. This is great as they celebrate their AFC East title. Either I want the Patriots to win or the Patriots to get annihilated. Because, and you're like, Wilds, why? Are you giving up? No. Last time we got annihilated 31-0 to the Bills after trading Lawyer Malloy, which you never should have done. We won the Super Bowl. So there's a certain palate cleansing to being annihilated by the Bills. So either a win or a total annihilation. Rooting for both.
Hedging, right? Hedging. Let's talk to the Wolves.
Jenna, you
Last
used
night,
it
Jason
right.
Tatum.
Jenna, you used it right.
Why do you sound so surprised? I took a word and I used it. This is what I was talking about. I want more rooting
This is
and less
exactly
surprise.
what she was talking about. That's
Last
right.
night, Jason Tatum banked
Great
in
job,
the
Jenna.
game winner to knock off Giannis and the Bucks. Thank you. My Celtics, good job, Jenna. My Celtics haven't lost but a single game this season. So how about that? Brandon, the best thing you saw in the NBA last night was blank. I'm only going to be able to use
Oh, a
that.
lot of good last night. If you watched the NBA last night, you had that game that we were just watching the highlights off of. The Jazz played amazing. You can go on and on and on. Zion Williams looked promising, but I got to go with Ja Morant because this kid's upside is tremendous. This dude went for a career high 44 points. His previous career high was only 30 points. And then he's doing this, right? Like, Nick, you talked about this earlier. This guy has nowhere to go with the basketball. He's in midair. He throws it off the backboard, comes back down, go back up, dunks the ball. Ja Morant, this dude, the man, is a phenomenal athlete and a phenomenal basketball
not that
player.
Impressive.
Speaking of, it's not that impressive. Oh, that's great. Back when Wilds used to do television with Tracy McGrady, he would show Tracy that clip every Monday morning and say, I can't believe you did it, can't believe you did it. Now that other people are doing it, it's not that impressive. I'm on to you, Wilds. But I'm going to go with a different young guy. Trae Young in the playoff-bound Atlanta Hawks.
Oh, that's a good one.
He went 37, 6, and 7, but it's better than that. He scored 37 points on 12 shots. He was 10 of 12 from the field and scored 37 points. It's as efficient of a night as anyone will have in the NBA all season. Now, he did do it against the Bulls, who might end up being the worst team in basketball, but still, 37 points on 12 shots for Trae Young, and I believe the playoff-bound Atlanta Hawks. Wilds.
Okay, this is my favorite clip. Got to be careful what you're rooting for. If you want Ben Simmons to take threes, like, you know what? This was after a win. Like, you know, let's get out there and practice our jumpers. Anybody want to come? Hey, Curry, you want to come work with me? Oh, no, I got something to do. Dwight's like, I'll do it. I need to work on I got to work on my threes, too. Like, oh, Doc Curry's like, oh, shoot.
Dwight's threes look better.
Gotta be careful what you gotta be careful what you wish for. Gotta be careful.
Really funny.
Oh, Benny needs to follow
Yeah,
through.
you're right, Brandon. Dwight's threes look better than his. Let's talk about the team that didn't play last night, the Rockets, as James Harden took to the gram yesterday to defend himself. I like it. Is this the beginning of the end of the beard in Houston? First things first.
What's going on? What's going on? What's happening here?
You
This guy's
tell me.
Heat uniform in there.
Back here, first things first, we're talking Houston Rockets now. Their game against the Thunder postponed because Houston didn't have the league-required 8 players available to take the floor. That's another story entirely. James Harden among those 8. He was fined $50,000 after the league saw him socializing without a mask this week. Harden took to social media to defend himself because that's what you do. He said he went to an event, not a strip club, to support a friend who had recently been promoted. Goes on to say, quote, every day it's something different. No matter how many times people try to drag my name under, you can't. The real always ends up on top. What about the mask? That's not an apology about not wearing a mask. It was that you weren't wearing a mask.
I know Broussard's going first, Jenna, but I got to say something to you because you're the best. Jenna Wolfe is the best because Jenna Wolfe's translation of my friend who recently became a boss was a friend who recently got a promotion at work. I don't think that's actually what happened, but that's how Jenna read it. Like, oh, she became a boss. That's a job promotion. So that's how she read it. You're the best, Jenna. You are the best. Go ahead. I'm like a boss. Like you used to be.
Then let me
now
just
you're a
say
boss.
this.
Sorry.
There were other people who read over my scripts before I went on the air. Somebody could have told me that I misunderstood the quote. I tried
they
to
wanted us to
paraphrase
have
the
this
best
moment.
way I
They
knew
wanted
how.
us to have this moment. Go ahead, Jenna. Sorry. Go to Broussard. My bad. Sorry.
Chris Broussard, there's a lot going on in Houston. There were reports of James Harden throwing balls at other players, that he's angry. There's the COVID stuff that's going on. They couldn't play last night, and now you got James Harden's fine. Is this just the last thing that the Rockets need? I mean, is this what the Rockets can now use to say, you know what, we got to trade him? It's too much already. It's obviously becoming a distraction, and we're just like a game, and they didn't even play the game into this season already.
Not yet. I mean, they said they were willing to get uncomfortable. You can't just crumble at the first sign of discomfort. Hold to your values of what you want in this trade. Now, if somebody's ready to give it to you, then by all means, get rid of James Harden. But don't just sell him for 50 cents on the dollar at this point. Let the season play out a little bit. Let's see what some other teams do. Miami lost to freaking Orlando last night. Denver lost to Sacramento last night. So what if Miami really doesn't look nearly as good as they're expected to over the first 3 weeks? Are they ready to up their offer for James Harden? So let it play out a bit. The COVID stuff, the league will handle that. If he continues to ignore the rules, the league may suspend him or step in and do what they have to do. Beyond that, what bothers me more if I'm Houston is his interaction with his teammates. Now, you mentioned the reports about verbal altercations with teammates, throwing a ball in the direction of one teammate. If he continues to do stuff like that, or maybe worse, to the point where it hinders the team's ability to function on the basketball court, it's messing up practice. We can't get our stuff in. Now it's messing up our preparation and how we function in a game. That's when you might have to move him more quickly. But I'm fine with this. It's going to be uncomfortable for a while.
Nah, it's time to move on right now. You just talked about it. You know, his interaction with his teammates, verbal altercations, throwing balls. Like, you can't do that. There comes a point where you have to put, and you're obligated, and you have a duty to protect everybody else in the organization. One guy can't be bigger than everyone else. So if I'm on that bench, or if I'm one of those coaches, it makes it uncomfortable for me every single day that I walk in the building. And that's just not fair. That's not right. And what ended up happening, the head coach, the general manager, president, the owner, you start losing credibility. Nobody wants to come in an organization like that. Those guys don't want to be there. What's going to end up happening is the other guys are going to ask for a trade. The other guy's going to say, I'm not going to play. And that's why it's time for the Houston Rockets to move on from James Harden now. Now, look, I get it. You can't sell a superstar and James Harden for 50 cents on the dollar. You're right there, Chris. But if I'm James Harden, I do what I did back in 2009 when the Jets was trying to trade me get me from the Denver Broncos. They were going back and forth with Coach Josh McDaniels, and they were like, "Oh, we want to offer, a 6th rounder, 7th rounder." And I'm coming off of back-to-back years of catching 100 balls in a season. And our team just called him and was like, "Look, it's either you're going to get it done or not. Like, we're not going to drag this thing out to the trade deadline. You know my value. Make the offer and let's go." They end up coming back, offering a 2nd rounder, and then also our linebacker Harris. And then they're like, "You know what? This is a good deal." But then Josh McDaniels came in and made it tough. But that's what James Harden needs to do. James Harden needs to reach out to the teams he wants to go to and say, "Make this happen right now," because this is getting toxic and it's bad for everybody and it's bad for the NBA.
All right, so I think both Brandon and Broussard raised valid points. I also think what Jenna said in the lead-in to this is relevant. So I want to address this first of all. I get it, James. You've had COVID. And given, your activities over the last decade, I imagine you have antibodies for strains of things that haven't even been discovered yet. I get it. You maybe don't personally need the mask. I understand. You are an influential member of society, and we are trying to live in a society. And you have an obligation as a public person not to be a jackass during a global pandemic. That's first of all. And I've always defended James, and I like James. And once upon a time back in Houston, if this video was from 6 years ago, you maybe could have seen me 8 rows over. So I don't like to say this, but it's true. Like, come on, man. Like, this is not how grown-ups who are responsible for the brands of basketball teams, Adidas, many things are supposed to act right now in this moment in America. That's first of all. Second of all is this, and I'll throw it to you, Wilds. James Harden allegedly wants out of Houston because he wants to win a championship. Is this the behavior a championship contender is going to be like, "Yep, sign me up. That's the missing piece. Or if he actually wants to win a championship, is he actively hurting the interest a championship caliber team would have in him? Like, would the Bulls still give a bunch away because they're awful? Of course. But you want to go to Miami? You want to go to Philly? You want to go to Boston? You want to go to one of these teams that actually maybe could win the title? Does he think they're watching this and like, yeah, that's the influence we want him to have on our young players? That's the influence we want in the locker room? Of course not. So again, what the hell are you doing,
That's a Jenna
man?
take, Nick.
And I've always defended him. I know, but at some point, you got to grow up.
No, it's
and at
good.
some point, you got to, what are you trying, Wilds, what is he trying to accomplish? Like, what is the end game here? Because I don't see it.
Look, I think 99% of what you said was excellent and spot on, except for the one part where maybe you would be hanging out with James Harden 8 rows back. Bro, you're not hanging out with James Harden. I know you lived in Houston. You're not hanging out with, like, maybe, I don't know. Hey, Broussard, that video of Jay-Z, maybe it's the old Kevin Wilds hanging out. Like, you're not going to.
There's only so many clubs in Houston.
Basketball Reference. No, you're reading Basketball Reference in a small room surrounded with LeBron James posters. You're not trying to hang out with James Harden. Let's be totally honest. Broussard, the only pushback I have on the situation, because I really do think that Nick is 99% correct, is this like heated exchange in practice. Oh my gosh, practice? Oh, a heated exchange, and he threw a ball at a teammate that missed the teammate. Oh my gosh, well, good Lord Almighty, he threw a ball that missed the teammate. A, it's called a pass, so you could, if he was really mad at his teammate, he could just give a hard pass, of like a 30-foot pass with a guy who's 10 feet away. Second of all, and I hate to be the back in my day guy, but I'm going to do it. Michael Jordan just straight up punched Steve Kerr in the face. Punched him in the face. Like, hey, how you doing, Steve Kerr? Blammo. Right in the face. So the idea that I have only a certain level of consternation that I can go up, and it about ends right here, for throwing the ball in the direction of a rookie. And I'll go so far to say, Broussard, I'm like, oh, that's kind of Jimmy Butler-y. Look at this, little competitive Harden.
It is Jimmy Butler.
I agree with Nick 100%, but the practice stuff doesn't bother me as much as everybody else.
And guess what happened after that infamous Jimmy Butler practice? He got traded.
You went
and now I agree with you. Altercations here or there, it happens all the time in pro sports. We know that. But I'm saying, first of all, Michael Jordan was still playing at that time, right? He was winning on the court. So that's kind of a different situation. But if Harden continues to do this, because that's not really Harden's style. He's more of a laid-back guy. And if he's going out of his way to mess up the chemistry, you can't get anything accomplished in practice because he's acting up. That's what I'm talking about. Now, you also could suspend him for conduct detrimental to the team. So there are a lot of ways you can go into. Nick made a good point. He may be hurting his trade value. It depends on the teams. There are some teams that think, look, we'll get him in here. He's just acting up to get traded. We'll be able to handle him. And some will be able to. Others, this is really turning them off. So it really depends on the GM and the organization.
And just one fact clarification for the story Wilds told about Steve Kerr and Michael Jordan. That actually never happened because that season never happened because that season Jordan lost in the playoffs, and we know that never happened. So he never actually punched Steve Kerr. None of that actually happened. So it was a 1995 year that didn't actually take place. It didn't actually take place, Jenna. So he never actually punched Steve Kerr. They never actually practiced that year. Games were never actually played. It was a strike season. We all know that. It's true.
Right. Let's get back to the NFL now. Speaking of practice, where DeAndre Hopkins has come under fire for missing practice. Practice? Practice? Nuke's got a message for all his haters. Take a listen.
You know, for those people who don't understand football and who just watch, there's a reason that I play football and they watch. Please tell your friends and all you guys on the local stations, you know, if you got anything negative to say about DeAndre Hopkins, I charge to come on shows, but I give a discount to come on the show for those people.
Back here, first things first. Talking Cardinals now, everything wideout DeAndre Hopkins has been a difference maker for Arizona. Nobody's going to deny that. But it was leaked this week that Nuke has been skipping the majority of team practices, and that has drawn some criticism. So yesterday, D-Hop stood up for himself. Take a listen to this.
Yeah, man, I heard a lot of negativity about me not practicing when I first came to Arizona. You know, I don't watch like the Arizona local news and the channels and the sports station. But my grandfather, he's an avid listener to everything and every single one. I think if one of you guys says something bad about me, my grandfather, he's told me, you know, for those people who don't understand football and who just watch, there's a reason that I play football and they watch. Please tell your friends and all you guys on the local stations, you know, if you got anything negative to say about DeAndre Hopkins, I charge to come on shows, but I give a discount to come on the show for those people.
There's just so much there. We got Mike Vick joining the conversation, but Brandon, I got to start with you. We talked about special treatment for talent like Kawhi Leonard, but let's head over to the NFL. Has Nuke earned the right not to practice? Is this the special talent that gets that right as well?
That's an interesting question, and the answer is yes and no. So let me jump into it. Right, 2012, I went for 1,500 yards. 2013, I went for 1,300 yards, 12 touchdowns, 11 touchdowns. So that's back-to-back years of being, all-pro, Pro Bowl player, and those were my years in Chicago. So what ended up happening in that moment was I started breaking down. I had a hip surgery. I actually had my third hip surgery. And I'm also at Pro Bowls, and I'm walking around, and I'm running into Megatron, the Steve Smiths of the world, and they're like, well, this is how I manage my body. This is what the teams does for me. So you start hearing those things. So basically what I'm saying is there comes a point in a player's life and in their career where they're like, how do I make it to the next season? How do I make it to year 10, year 12, whatever your career goals are? Like, you start thinking about it. And then it starts to wear and tear on the team. And the reason why is because you look around and be like, well, coach gave that guy a vet day, or these guys are being managed this way. How are you going to help me? And it's tough for the wide receiver because it's not all about you. It's about the quarterback. Like, the quarterback, that's the one position on the field where they got to see it in real time. Friday, Fast Friday, what is that? We're in and out. A lot of guys on the field is going through the motions. They're going half speed. But that quarterback position and a wide receiver position, tight end position, we're getting those real reps. They need to see us full speed. And that is the challenge with D-Hop and other professional athletes and other wide receivers. So you think about, Mike, you know, what do I need to do to get to the next week? What do I need to do to get to the next year and try to stay fresh? But the coach is sitting back and thinking about, well, I want a crisp practice. So if you're the Cardinals and you're looking at Andy Isabella out there in D-Hop's spot, and Andy Isabella is lining up wrong and he's dropping the ball, then it makes everybody feel uncomfortable with the game plan. You know that. We're looking for perfect practices, and that is the challenge that D-Hop and a lot of guys face.
I agree with you, Brandon, and on a couple of different points. But I think mainly when you talk about repetition and you talk about the quarterback and the receiver getting the reps and timing and being on the same page, it's so invaluable that it's so hard to explain. It just has to happen. But I was always a big fan of Deshaun Jackson and Jeremy Maclin not practicing on Wednesday and Thursday. And those are the days where you know, you try to come out and find the timing, but it's also the days where you run more. And I always felt like, you know, our receivers was like on the track team. Like, they ran a lot, and sometimes they ran routes and didn't get the ball, and they, you know, every day is just taking more and more tread off the tires when in actuality you really need to be fresh. That's right. I was more so a fan of guys practicing on Friday. And getting out on Friday and getting the timing down. And I would have loved to play with you, Coach Reed. Oh man, Coach Reed. I would have loved to play with you, Mike. That's how. And it wasn't just me. I struggled in Chicago. You know, it was Andy. Go ahead.
Yeah, I struggled in Chicago. Jay Cutler, he wouldn't allow me not to practice. He would come to me and be like, Brandon, you're the rabbit. When you're not out there, the juice isn't there. I was so frustrated in Chicago because I'm coming off my 3rd hip surgery. I go to Jay and I go to all the coaches and I'm like, guys, can you help me load manage? Like, I need to last. I'm going to go out there and be like D-Hop and go for over 100 yards and maybe go for a touchdown or 2, but I need to make it through. And Jay was like, no, you need to be out there Wednesday and Thursday. And that is a huge problem for some people.
Brandon,
you did it backwards.
which is why it's a very good thing Jay Cutler once upon a time spotted you those 40 racks, or else you guys shouldn't be friends anymore. Because it might have shortened your career. Well, 60, pardon me. Because the reality is that's a Jay Cutler problem, not a Brandon Marshall problem. And here's DeAndre Hopkins' resume. Since he came into the league, he has been the most durable #1 receiver in football. 126 games eligible, started 124 of them. Well, how productive has he been? Well, first team All-Pro, first team All-Pro, first team All-Pro, each of the last 3 years, and this year leads the NFL in receiving yards and has 2 singular catches that won football games that only he could make. If he wants to practice every day, fine. If he wants to never practice, fine. If he wants to practice only every other Thursday and do it naked, whatever works, because he is producing when it matters. Like, it is.
But that's not. But that's the problem, Nick.
But it's working for him. Is it working for the team?
Yes, it is.
Yeah,
yes, it is working for the team.
Nick, I think that's the.
It is though,
Nick. I think that's the challenge.
But it is.
Look, this is the challenge, right? This is the challenge: is that everything, spacing and timing is critical for an offense, especially in the passing game. So when D-Hop is not out there, and let's say we have a scissors routes on, the way D-Hop releases is different than Andy Isabella. So that tight end who has to work off of that release from the receiver, he needs to feel that. So it's less about D-Hop and his production and more so how does everything work together. Because when you implement the game plan come Monday, Tuesday, and then you start practicing on Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, we're actually trying to see if this stuff is going to work. So by the end of the week, what we're doing is we're taking out all those plays. This is literally what happens. So the plays that we don't connect on, the coaches and the Mike Vicks of the world, they're sitting back saying, oh, I didn't feel good about this. Well, would you feel good about it if D-Hop was in there and the timing felt better and the guy actually caught the ball, he did his job? So I hear what you're saying, Nick. But it's less about D-Hop's production and more so about how does it help and affect the team, the quarterback, the tight end.
I understand that, but just quickly, and then I'll throw it to you, Wilds. Unless the assumption is DeAndre Hopkins is being lazy, which no one has ever accused him of. He's one of the hardest workers in the league. There is a reason this is the practice schedule he thinks he needs. So what is the ideal practice every day and be available for every game and be the most productive receiver in football? Sure. But it is an unknown, Wilds. If he practiced every day, would those connections be slightly crisper? Maybe. And instead of having missed 2 games in his entire career, maybe he had missed 22. And then what are we talking about? Yeah. He is available. Yep. He's the most productive receiver in the league. He's arguably the best receiver in the league. It's working. So I think the criticism of it, Wilds, is unfair.
I'm sorry, Wilds, 1 second, buddy. I'm going to throw it to you really quickly, but I went through this thing. That's why I went back to 2012 and 2013. Like, that was one of the biggest things when the new regime came in and Coach Fox came in, we talked about it. And I said, well, there was a discussion at the beginning of the year saying that they were going to help me manage this thing. It never happened. So I had to take control of my own career. Fast forward, I get traded to the Jets because they just didn't like our conversations around those type of things. I get to the Jets and I got Todd Todd Bowles. What did Todd Bowles do? He gave me those vet days when I needed those vet days. And also, what they did that was really smart is instead of saying, Brandon, take off Wednesday, Thursday, they said, here's the plays that you need. Because Mike is right. If I'm out there as a wide receiver, I can look at my GPS and say, damn, I ran 5 miles today and I caught 2 balls. That wear and tear is brutal on your body. But what they did is said, you don't need to be on that clear route. What you need to be on these certain plays. And then there's also some plays where I may not be getting the ball, but it helps the tight end and the quarterback see it and feel it. So my practice load went from taking 50 plays to 20 plays sometimes and 15. That's what we did later on in my career, and it was very effective. I think that's the solution.
Okay, I absolutely loved this video, Mike. And Pepper, if we can put it up with no sound and just look at DeAndre's body language, I feel like if this was something that Daniel Day-Lewis did, of just like, hey, can you show me very confident? Like, sure, how about this? How about I lean back? Like, it's wonderful. But Mike, I'm gonna take it in a different direction because this is not DeAndre's style, but it's the Patriot style, where it's like, man, I'm just doing what the coach is asking me to do. And then dead the whole thing. Because I did love the performance, but a part of me thought, you know what? He doesn't really need to answer this question. He's having a great year. He's like, you know what? That's a question for the coach. I'm just here to win football games. Do you think Kingsbury has a responsibility to sort of step in here?
Yeah, I think so. But what normally happens and what's the norm sometimes is that, you know, a guy like Brandon, who was a great receiver, Julio Jones or DeAndre Hopkins, you know, it's not even about them. It's not even about them going out, running routes and trying to perfect timing. We can do that like in 15 minutes. You know, run a couple routes out after practice and we can get the timing down. It's more about the younger guys, the younger receivers that's watching and setting an example and leadership, and that's what's trying to be. That's what they try to convey on a daily basis. That we have to be the ultimate leaders and consummate teammates. So you know that plays a factor. But you know at the end of the day, with my guys, if Brandon, if you was my receiver, you went to practice on Wednesday and Thursday. I would have made sure that you was fresh and you could have did your interviews and you could have looked like DeAndre Hopkins in super chill mode and did whatever you wanted to do as long as you showed up on Sundays and as long as after the game was over on Sunday, you told me that you was fresh in the game and you felt good. That's all I cared about.
All right, well, it's not an issue until it's an issue. Let's talk some NBA now. Jason Tatum with the game winner against Giannis and the Bucks last night. This was a good one. So why was that a bad shot? First things first. Next. Back to the NFL now. Packers came away with a win against the Panthers last week, but Aaron Rodgers did not play up to his typical standards. 143 yards and 1 touchdown. But he isn't worried about that turning into a trend. Take a listen to this.
As hard as it is to be great every single week, when the expectation is so high and the preparation is what it is, I think it's kind of hard to suck back-to-back weeks as well.
Aaron Rodgers' hat is always just a little too big for him. After last week's performance, Rodgers now a big underdog.
Awesome take,
to Patrick
Jenna.
Mahomes in the MVP race. Thank you. Oh my gosh, you guys are the best. Thank you. That according to Fox Bet Sportsbook. Rodgers got a great opportunity to make up some ground against the 10-4 Titans. We got Mike Vick back with us now. Mike, would a win over Tennessee put Aaron Rodgers back in striking distance of Mahomes in the MVP race?
I mean, it could, but it will make the conversation more relevant in terms of Aaron Rodgers getting back into the race and getting close and gaining some ground on Patrick Mahomes. But he's about to face the Atlanta Falcons, and the Atlanta Falcons defense hasn't played well all season. So while I think Patrick is going to light it up and I think Rodgers is going to light it up, you know, it's just not going to serve well for Aaron. And while he's had a great season and done some great things, you know, I think the conversation ends this weekend because Patrick's going to light it up and he won't play in week 17 versus, you know, whatever opponent they play. You know, I know he'll be sitting out because they have everything pretty much locked up. So it's probably a done deal. But it's been a great MVP race and got two of the best quarterbacks in the National Football League competing down the stretch and making it very interesting. But, I think the conversation will probably be irrelevant after this weekend.
Yeah, listen, I think Mike makes some really good points, but I'm going to throw a bit of a curveball in this conversation. I think Titans-Packers is going to end up being the single most important game played by any two teams all season when it comes to MVP voting, because it's going to determine who finishes second. And that's valuable. It's relevant. Like, is it going to be Derrick Henry or Aaron Rodgers? Because we know who's going to win it. Mahomes is going to win it. His team's going to go 15-1. He's going to throw for 5,000 yards. He's going to throw for 40-some touchdowns with 5-6 interceptions. He's going to win it. Who's going to finish second to him? This guy, who might rush for 2,000, or Rodgers, who already has a handful of MVPs, deserves them all, by the way, maybe deserves one more than he has, who is having a spectacular season, just has the bad fortune, him being Aaron Rodgers, of going up against an all-time Patrick Mahomes season. So the MVP race is over. But second place is still alive. And I don't know who's going to get it, Rodgers or Derrick Henry, because if Derrick Henry, Brandon, gets 2,000 yards and the Titans go 11-5 or 12-4, he's got to at least be considered as the second most valuable player in the league.
Yeah, you made a lot of great points there, Nick. And, I definitely agree with you when you talk about Derrick Henry. I said that last week. If this guy goes for 2,000 yards, he will be the MVP. He should be the MVP. We just don't see that often. But look, guys, to have this conversation and make it easy, I put together my NFL MVP race hierarchy. So I want to show you what it looked like last week. Okay, so if you take a look here, this is called the family vacation. And it's a great picture to help us paint how it forms and how it plays out in the NFL. Just stay with me here. Last week, right, we were talking about who is it? Is it Mahomes? Is it Aaron Rodgers? Right? Because Mahomes was at the front of the jet ski. That's where you're the leader. You have all the power. And then all of a sudden we start really looking at all the major categories, statistical categories, and it was Aaron Rodgers, Aaron Rodgers, Aaron Rodgers. So I was like, yeah, Aaron Rodgers needs to be in front of the jet ski. And then he goes and plays the Carolina Panthers, and he throws for 143 yards. And before we even go to what it looks like now, you got Derrick Henry out there. He was emerging. Guys were like, oh, this dude's having a lights-out season, stiff-arming people to the ground, hurting their heads. And then he got on his own jet ski. Russell Wilson in the back. Russell Wilson, what happened? That's the most uncomfortable place you can be. You were actually leading. You were, at one point in the season, you were on the front of the jet ski. And now he's in the back. And if you're back there, anything can happen. Any major wave, any turn from Aaron Rodgers or Mahomes, you could just go flying off that thing. And then on the boat, Wilds was arguing and fighting for Big Ben, and I was fighting for Josh Allen. They were having some good years. Josh Allen's having a good year. So look, here's how it looks today. So I want to show you guys what's going on. So let's look at the update. Whoa! What do you see?
In the water.
Oh my goodness! Yeah, so now, look, Patrick Mahomes, let's start there. Patrick Mahomes, there's nothing that can happen now. After that outing last week, throwing for 143 yards, and Patrick Mahomes throwing for 254 yards, 3 touchdowns, he is the clear-cut favorite. He is leading this thing. Big Ben, I don't know what happened to Big Ben's clothes. He's now in the water. Russell Wilson, Russell hit the...
No life jacket.
You see him, Mike?
Big Ben, no life jacket, no life... Like, come on, man. Y'all gonna leave my man Ben to drown?
Wow. Do you agree with this, right? You got Russell Wilson in the air. He's about to fall off. Derrick Henry still trying to go for 2K. He wants to be the MVP.
I know when there's official voting that this is the graphic and the statistics that they look at. All the voters say, like, all right, well, who's on the front of the jet skis? I think it's very valid. I'm going to ask Nick, because Nick is like the resident statistician, even though Dusty is behind the scenes. What if Derrick Henry runs for, it starts to get near Eric Dickerson? What if he does so well in these last 2 games? Is there anything he can do where you don't think with your heart, think with your statistician mind?
Yes, the answer is yes.
Whoa.
If he gets the most rushing yards ever, But if he gets the most rushing yards ever, then sure, give him the MVP. But that because
I agree.
Not just because he'd be setting that record, and I'll throw it to you, Vic, but because that would mean in the final 2 weeks of the year, he had 550 yards rushing. He would have had to go
like
back to back like 250, 300. And so it's not just he would have set the record, he would have finished with the greatest finishing 2 games in the history of the league, getting his team to 12-4. That would be enough. Like, that's what you would need to overtake Mahomes, I think. And I think Derrick Henry very well might get to 2,000, but getting to 2,200 is a bridge too far even for him.
Wow.
Yeah, if Derrick Henry can have 2 back-to-back good weeks, man, it might propel him and put him in a position where he can ultimately win it. That'd be a beautiful thing to see a running back win the MVP, but ultimately we know that it belongs to the quarterbacks of the National Football League, whether it's Rodgers or whether it's Patrick Mahomes. I think it bodes well to see a MVP, in the hands of a quarterback. So I'm going to stay biased on that.
Oh. Shocking, Mike Vick, quarterback.
Well, listen. Here's the deal. I don't think he needs to have the most rushing yards ever. I just think he needs to rush for 2,000 yards to become the MVP. Because, like I said, it just doesn't happen. I just looked up something online real quick, and I said, how many 2,000-yard rushers? There's only been 6 guys to do it. Well, we've seen these type of years from quarterbacks before. This is what it also says. Perhaps the hardest feat to accomplish in sports is rushing for 2,000 yards. They didn't say football. They said perhaps the hardest thing to do in sports. So far in NFL history, only 6 players achieved this. Jamal Lewis, Chris Johnson, Barry Sanders, Terrell Davis, O.J. Simpson, and Eric Dickerson. That's on Bleacher Report. Just Google it. Like, this is a hard thing to do. This is why if this man rushes for 2,000 yards on the head, he should be the MVP.
The only thing there, though, Brandon, is 2 of the last 3 to do it didn't win MVP. Chris Johnson ran for 2,000 yards, didn't get MVP. Jamal Lewis ran for 2,000 yards, didn't win MVP. Adrian Peterson did win MVP when he ran for 2,000 yards. I think in part they were like, my God, he took a Christian Ponder team to the playoffs. That man deserves 2 MVPs for what he did. So, like, it's not the luck. Sorry, Christian Ponder. Oh, no, that's fair. Listen, and Derrick Henry's been unbelievable. That's fair. That's fair.
Brandon's line of the day. This happened. Just Google it. Mike Vick, thank you as always for joining us. Our sports Christmas wish list coming up next. Just Google it.
Do it.
On Christmas Day, it's an NFL special as the Vikings take on the Saints. Rematch of last year's wild card weekend. That big overtime upset. Coverage begins 3:30 Eastern on Fox. Also available on NFL Network and streaming on Prime Video. All right, let's head to the NBA. Talking some Houston Rockets now. Their game against the Thunder postponed because Houston didn't have the league required 8 players available to take the floor last night. James Harden among them. Harden was fined $50,000 after the league saw him socializing without a mask on this week. Well, Harden took to social media to defend himself, saying, among other things, no matter how many times people try to drag my name under, you can't. The real always ends up on top. Brandon, I'll start with you. You think the Rockets need to trade Harden now after this latest incident?
Yeah, absolutely. And this is one of many. I said this, 2 months ago when this stuff started popping up. When a player has his mind made up and he wants to go, it's best for both parties to just get it done and get it done as quickly as possible. Now, look, rules are rules. All right, I said this when I was planning. I knew I was going to transition into be a full-time analyst, okay, being a talking head, talking about sports. One thing I never wanted to become was one of those athletes that just crushes the NFL guys, NBA guys, because sometimes, like, people don't get it when they're not in it.
Yep.
And I never wanted to be that, right? So for me, sitting here, this is kind of hard. But rules are rules. Some rules are bad, some rules are good, some rules make sense. And this happened to be one of those rules that makes sense. It's like, look, we have COVID-19 protocols. We're in the middle of a global pandemic still. Put a mask on when you're out. And better yet, try not to be in places that's crowded with so many different people, especially when it could end the game and we're looking at costing owners and concessions millions of dollars and players millions of dollars. So James Harden, I just don't understand what he's doing here. He has to grow up. He has to mature. When I think about this, the organization, they have an obligation, they have a duty to protect everyone on that team, everyone in that locker room. Okay, that's coaches, that's players, that's everyone. James Harden, verbal altercations with teammates, throwing balls at teammates, now potentially putting his teammates in the NBA in harm's way by not having a mask on in public places. It's time to move on because this dude is hurting people. So you are losing the integrity of what you're trying to do in Houston, and you're also losing credibility. So right now, you say you want to get uncomfortable, but are you willing to get uncomfortable and lose your credibility is the question.
So to me, there's 2 points. There's the off the court, and then there's the tangible on the court for the Rockets and whomever trade for Harden. Let me deal with the off the court. And I don't mean to be a public scold, but we all have a responsibility in this moment to be leaders within our community, and those of us with any platform whatsoever, be it as small as mine or as big as James Harden's, to be a leader as far as how to get us as a society to the other side of this pandemic that as of this morning has killed 1 in 1,000 Americans. And James Harden, who is the brand ambassador for Adidas, who is the brand ambassador for the Houston Rockets, both of whom have paid him nearly $250 million each, has a responsibility to not act like a jackass in public on the gram and on every social media platform available. That is literally the least any of us can do. So that's just as a human being in this moment. Hey, guess what? I also like to go out at night. I also wish we could go party with friends, but we are all trying to get through this together. Now to the basketball side of things. Wilds. Harden allegedly wants to leave Houston, not because he's acting like a petulant child and they didn't give him his way, but because he wants to win a championship. The insatiable thirst for a championship has become too much. He's been in this desert and he's searching for an oasis. Wilds, if you're a championship team or a potential championship team, has anything James Harden done in the last 6 weeks made you more likely or less likely to want him on your team? Or is James Harden's actions making it more likely a desperate non-contender is the only team that's going to pay anything close to fair value for him? Because I would argue it's the latter, not the former. So I don't even know what he's working towards, Wilds.
I think that's a great point. I wonder how much like GM ego comes into play, Nick, where GMs see this like, well, that wouldn't happen, heat culture. Or Daryl's like, wasn't like this when I was running the show. Or Danny Ainge like, well, I'm Danny Ainge. I was cute in the 80s, something like that. The other thing that we're talking about is...
You nailed it.
That's the one, Jenna. We talk about getting uncomfortable. There's different levels of uncomfortability. There's like, an ill-fitting sweater is right about here. They're like eating a porcupine raw, don't even cook it, right about here. And then the fines that James Harden is getting for missing games is right about here. If we can put up Woj's tweet, woo, that's a big number, Jenna. So we talk about getting uncomfortable, and James Harden's players were like, well, I'll give a curt press conference. The Rockets like, all right, we'll lose $250,000. Like, okay, uncomfortable to checkmate. So, Jenna,
that's nearly 3 little baby birthday presents. I don't know how he's going to handle it.
And his half birthday.
Of course, I was like, he has 3 little babies. Back to the NFL now, and we're talking about everything whiteout DeAndre Hopkins, who's been just a total difference maker in Arizona. But it was leaked this week that Nuke's been skipping the majority of team practices, and that has drawn some criticism. So yesterday, Hopkins stood up for himself. Take a listen to this.
Yeah, man, I heard a lot of negativity about me not practicing when I first came to Arizona. You know, I don't watch like the Arizona local news and the channels and the sports station. But my grandfather, he's an avid listener to everything and every single one. I think if one of you guys says something bad about me, my grandfather, he's told me, you know, for those people who don't understand football and who just watch, there's a reason that I play football and they watch. Please tell your friends and all you guys on the local stations, you know, if you got anything negative to say about DeAndre Hopkins, I charge to come on shows, but I give a discount to come on the show for those people.
He looks really comfortable. The way he's sitting, he's good. Hey, Brandon, look at DeAndre Hopkins, and you see what he's done on the field. Has he earned the right not to practice this season?
Loaded question, right? Because we talk about having vet days and, you know, star treatment. Yep. So I would say yes and no.
Special treatment,
you know, and I can really speak into this because I'm obviously, you know, a former wide receiver, played the game at a high level, and actually went through this same thing. Go back to 2012, 2013. 2012, coming off my third hip surgery, okay? 2012, I also had 1,500 yards. 2013, I had 1,300 yards, 12 touchdowns, 11 touchdowns, all pro, Pro Bowl. So having a phenomenal outing in my first 2 years in Chicago. There comes a point for every player, and this was the moment for me where I'm like, man, my body hurts. How do I get to year 10? How do I get to year 15 if that is that's in my goals, right? That's on my list. So we think about those things. You look around the league and you're like, well, Megatron, I just talked to Megatron and they give him off Wednesday, or they let him only practice half the day. So you start having these conversations with yourself. You start having these conversations with your quarterback, your general manager, your head coach. Like, guys, how are you going to help manage me? Some teams do a great job. Some teams doesn't. But here's the challenge when it comes to the wide receiver position. It's not about you, right? And it's hard because, you know, I had to navigate this. The wide receiver, D-Hop, has proven that he's going to perform whether he practices Wednesday, Thursday, or Friday. If he doesn't have to practice, he's going to perform. And I truly believe there are some guys out there that don't need the practice. They just need the mental reps, and they will be fine. But the timing, the spacing is critical for a really good offense. So when D-Hop is out there and they have mesh and they have these two-man combinations, I need to feel where Alshon Jeffrey's going to be. I need to feel where Martellus Bennett's going to be. I need to see how we're going to rub shoulders. How am I going to get you open? How are you going to get me open? The quarterback needs to feel that. The goal is to put in the game plan Monday, Tuesday, come Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. We're implementing phases of the game. So first down, second down, third down, red zone, 2-minute drill. So we're doing these things and figuring out what works. The things that we don't connect on, we're taking out the game plan. But what if Brandon Marshall or D-Hop was in those practices? Would it work or would it have not worked still, right? So those are the things that is challenging, and I think that's what D-Hop has to navigate is it affecting my teammates and my coaches? If I was D-Hop's head coach, this is what I would do, Nick. All right, here's the solution. I would do what the Jets did for me, what Coach Bowles did for me. Brandon, here's the plays you need. So instead of you taking 40, 50 plays in practice, what we're going to do is give you the plays to count. And my practice load was probably sometimes 15 plays a game, practice. Sometimes it was 22, and that helped me. So I went from being in Chicago to trying to take off Wednesday, Thursday, to being in New York and only practicing 12 to 20 plays a practice.
That's why you're in the shape you're in right now, buddy. All right, it is time for our first things first, sports Christmas wish list. I will go first. My sports wish is the same thing it's been for the last 10 years. A simple, easy, free, takes no time whatsoever. Follow back from Danny Ainge on Twitter. Sure, I'd love a signed basketball, but all I will settle for and be happy with My childhood crush, Danny Ainge, number 44. Watch me. Click. That's all I'm looking for, buddy. It's getting easier and easier every year. With that, I pass to you, Brandon.
Yeah, so look, there's a lot of talk about the quarterbacks in the NFL. What I want to see, okay, and under my tree, wrapped up nicely, all right, with a nice little bow, is a matchup between Baker Mayfield and Josh Allen. That's what I want to see in the playoffs.
Yeah.
So, Nick, hopefully Santa brings it to me.
That's great. Mine's very quick and simple, Wilds. The only thing that I want the same thing to happen in 2021 as 2020 is the NFL and NBA champions. Let's go LeBron and Mahomes, repeat. Let's just go back-to-back both of them. That's all. It was simple. It happened this past year. Let's do it again.
Of course
That'd
he
be
wants
good
that.
for you.
Well, I know you guys did a lot of sports stuff. Mine's a little more serious. I want everyone to approach the new year with confidence, and fortune favors the bold, just like Jason Tatum. Shoot the ball up and it'll get a lucky bounce. Who knows? Got to be fortune favors the bold. Be confident, shoot it up, bango, right up and in.
Merry Christmas.
Merry Christmas,
Happy
y'all.
holidays, everyone. We're off tomorrow. See you on Monday.